Before Volvo became famous for safety, they built something else. Excavators so tough, so overbuilt, and so rugged that operators swore they were basically tanks with buckets. The 1980s was the decade Volvo unleashed machines designed to survive anything: frozen mines, brutal construction sites, collapsing terrain, and conditions that destroyed lesser excavators in weeks. These weren't just durable, they were nearly indestructible. Get ready, because these are the 10 Volvo excavators from the 1980s that were truly built like tanks. Number 1. Åkerman H7. The Akerman H7 is, without question, the machine most people think of when they talk about 80s Volvo excavators built like tanks, even though it technically predates the official Volvo branding. Throughout the 1980s, the H7 dominated Scandinavian construction sites, and it quickly spread across Europe because it delivered something no competitor could match: unshakable structural strength combined with timeless mechanical simplicity. This 15-ton crawler excavator became legendary, not just because it performed well when new, but because it continued performing well 20, 30, and even 40 years later. Many H7s still operate today in forestry, rural contracting, and small quarry jobs, and that longevity is proof of the design philosophy Akerman engineers lived by: build everything twice as thick as needed, and then reinforce it again. The upper structure of the H7 was a masterpiece of heavy steel fabrication. Its boom and dipper were constructed from thick, high-grade steel plates welded with deep penetration seams. These weren't delicate machines, they were expected to lift rocks, drag material, and survive shock loads daily. The undercarriage was even more impressive. Track frames, rollers, and idlers were astonishingly overbuilt for the machine's size. While many excavators of the era struggled with undercarriage wear, the H7 seemed almost immune to it. Operators joked that the undercarriage would outlast 2 engines. And speaking of engines, the H7 typically used simple, torque-rich diesel engines that prioritized reliability over horsepower. These engines were easy to maintain and forgiving when neglected, ideal for contractors working long hours in remote areas. The cab wasn't luxurious, but operators respected its visibility, straightforward controls, and the feeling that everything was geared toward long-term use. There was nothing fragile about the H7. Everything you touched felt like it could survive a decade of abuse, and then another decade after that. This, more than anything else, made the H7 a legend, a machine that simply refused to die. Number 2. Åkerman H7B. The Åkerman H7B took everything great about the original H7 and refined it into a machine that felt more modern, while retaining the tank-like durability that operators prized. Introduced in the early to mid-1980s, the H7B represented Åkerman's growing understanding of what contractors demanded: better hydraulic smoothness, improved cab comfort, and incremental structural upgrades based on real-world wear patterns. Instead of reinventing the wheel, Åkerman improved every part of the wheel that mattered. The result was an excavator that looked similar from a distance but felt dramatically better in daily operation. Structurally, the H7B featured reinforced weld zones in the boom foot, dipper nose, and undercarriage stress points, areas where the original H7 occasionally developed fatigue after thousands of hours in punishing environments. These reinforcements extended the lifespan of the machine, which was already known for surviving decades. Hydraulic updates were even more noticeable. The H7B introduced smoother multifunctioning capability, which meant operators could dig, swing, and boom up simultaneously with far better coordination. This made trenching, slope shaping, and truck loading significantly faster. The cab, while still basic by modern standards, was redesigned with improved insulation, better seat ergonomics, and a control arrangement that reduced operator fatigue. Visibility remained excellent thanks to Åkerman's large glass design philosophy. Operators often commented that the H7B felt lighter and more refined, even though it was physically just as heavy and durable as its predecessor. That psychological difference mattered. The machine felt sturdier, more predictable, and more responsive. And then there was the reliability factor. Contractors trusted the H7B because it rarely broke down and was incredibly easy to maintain. Nothing was hidden, nothing was overly complicated, and nothing required strange tools. This excavator didn't just build projects, it built careers. For many operators, the H7B wasn't just a machine, it was a partner that delivered year after year without complaint. Number 3. The Akerman H7C. By the time the Akerman H7C arrived in the late 1980s, the platform had reached its peak. This was the most refined, most reliable, and most operator-friendly version of the legendary H7 lineage. Where the H7 broke ground and the H7B perfected the basics, the H7C polished the machine into a true world-class excavator. If the earlier H7s were tanks, the H7C was a tank with smoother suspension, more precise steering, and better crew comfort, without sacrificing 1 gram of the structural durability Åkerman was known for. The H7C's hydraulics were the best of the series. Multifunctioning was noticeably smoother. Boom response was more progressive. Fine grading became easier. Trenching became faster. Swing control felt more balanced. This was a machine that operators could finesse, not just force. That balance of brute strength and refined control is why the H7C quickly became a favorite among experienced operators who appreciated machines that didn't fight them. Under the skin, Åkerman incorporated small but meaningful mechanical upgrades, improved pump efficiency, stronger hydraulic lines, upgraded seals, and better cooling performance. These improvements extended service intervals and reduced the number of small failures that machines could experience in brutal conditions. Structurally, the H7C carried extra reinforcement in the boom and undercarriage, widening its safety margin even further. The cab also saw its most significant redesign. Noise levels were lower, vibrations were reduced, and the seat finally felt like something meant for 10-hour shifts rather than short bursts of work. By the late 1980s, the H7C had earned a mythical reputation among Scandinavian contractors. If you need one machine to last forever, buy this one. Number 4. Åkerman H9. The Åkerman was what happened when the H7 grew up, hit the gym, and came back 30% stronger. Sitting in the 18-20-ton class, the H9 was built for contractors who needed more reach, more bucket capacity, and more breakout force than the mid-sized H7 family could provide. It wasn't just a scaled-up machine, it was engineered for heavier stresses, harsher environments, and higher production rates. If the H7 was a universal contractor machine, the H9 was for serious earth movers and large civil engineering crews. One look at the H9 told you it was built for war. The boom sections were thicker, the dipper arm deeper, and the entire superstructure looked like a block of steel. Åkerman's engineers understood that larger excavators encounter far more lateral strain and twisting force when digging in deep trenches or rocky ground, so they built the H9 to withstand punishment that would cripple lighter machines. The undercarriage was especially impressive. Track frames were so over-engineered that mechanics joked they could support a tank. Rollers were oversized, carrying weight loads far beyond what most 1980s excavators were rated for. Hydraulically, the H9 was a brute with finesse. It didn't have the lightning-fast responsiveness of a modern excavator, but it had consistent, powerful, and predictable motion. Operators could carve out perfect trench walls in clay or snap through rock-hard material with the bucket teeth. The machine never felt strained, it always felt like it had more force in reserve. That sense of having extra power waiting made operators incredibly confident. Most importantly, the H9 delivered staggering uptime. Even today, finding a 1980s H9 still working isn't unusual. They're used in logging roads, farm drainage, rural contracting, and even small quarries. These machines didn't retire. They simply slowed down and kept going. Number 5. Åkerman H10. The Åkerman H10 marked the point where the brand transitioned from tough construction excavators into genuine heavy-duty production machines. This excavator was designed for contractors whose work demanded relentless digging, massive bucket loads, and full-day productivity in harsh environments. Everything about the H10 was big. Big steel, big boom, big engine, big pumps. It wasn't meant for delicate tasks. It was meant to move huge amounts of earth and rock as efficiently as possible. In appearance, the H10 looked like an armored vehicle with an excavator arm attached. The body stood tall and heavy, the boom had huge box section reinforcement, and the dipper looked like it belonged on a mining shovel. Contractors immediately appreciated this seriousness of purpose. When the H10 arrived on a site, it became the centerpiece of production. Trucks lined up beside it. Rock piles vanished quickly. Cut-and-fill operations moved faster. The machine gave crews a sense that progress was inevitable, simply because the H10 was unstoppable. The hydraulic system was tuned for raw digging performance. Cycle times were solid. Breakout force was exceptional, and the machine rarely bogged down even when encountering hardpan or rock seams. Operators valued how planted the machine felt. With its heavier frame and wide undercarriage, the H10 hardly moved when the bucket hit tough material. Stability translated into confidence, and confidence translated into productivity. Mechanically, the H10 was built on a rugged foundation similar to the H9 but scaled up further. Final drives were massive. Swing gear assemblies were almost ludicrously heavy. Cooling systems were oversized for longevity, and the machine's layout allowed mechanics to perform major repairs in the field with minimal hassle. The Uptords wasn't just built like a tank, it worked like one. Methodical, unstoppable, and always pushing forward. Number 6. Akerman H10B. The Akerman H10B took the raw brute force formula of the original H10 and refined it into a machine that felt both stronger and smoother, a rare combination in the 1980s excavator world. By the time the H10B arrived, Akerman had thousands of hours of field feedback. They knew exactly which components took the most abuse, which joints saw the most stress, and which hydraulic circuits needed refinement. So instead of redesigning the machine from scratch, they reinforced every critical weakness and enhanced everything operators loved. The result was an excavator that didn't just feel built like a tank, it felt like an up-armored tank, one engineered to survive even harsher punishment. Structurally, the H10B featured improved welding patterns, thicker plating around high-stress boom and stick joints, and a counterweight better balanced to handle heavier buckets. These upgrades didn't just make the machine stronger, they made it last longer, especially in environments like quarries, dam construction, and deep pipeline trenches where constant pressure and heavy loads could destroy lesser machines. The undercarriage was refined as well, with more durable rollers, better track chain metallurgy, and improved seals that helped the machine push through mud, rock, and frost without eating itself alive. Hydraulically, the H10B delivered a noticeably smoother feel than its predecessor. Multifunctioning saw significant improvement, meaning operators could slew, boom down, and crowd the dipper all at once without choking the system. This made truck loading faster, trenching more efficient, and finish work surprisingly precise for a machine of its size. Operator comfort also received attention. The cab insulation was upgraded, controls were positioned more ergonomically, and vibration levels were reduced, small changes that made long shifts feel far less punishing. In many fleets across Scandinavia, the H10B became the production machine. The excavator you relied on when deadlines were tight and the work was rough. It kept going when others broke down. It thrived in jobs that chewed through competitors. For contractors who owned one, the H10B wasn't just equipment, it was an unfair advantage. Number 7. The Åkerman H10BLC. Åkerman H10BLC took everything great about the H10B and added a longer undercarriage that fundamentally changed the machine's behavior. With its stretched footprint, the H10BLC offered a level of stability that operators of the 1980s could only dream of, especially when working at reach, digging on slopes, or performing deep trenching. This wasn't just a modification, it was a specialized masterpiece. The added track length spread the machine's weight more evenly and gave it a low, confident stance on any terrain. For operators working in soft soils, wetlands, riverbanks, and unstable embankments, the difference was night and day. The long carriage design also improved lifting power. With more track on the ground, the machine could handle larger loads without teetering or rocking. Contractors immediately noticed that with the H10BLC, they could safely lift and position heavy pipe sections, trench boxes, and large stones that would make shorter undercarriage machines nervous. This stability was not just about safety, it also translated into faster, more productive work. Operators could move confidently and efficiently without constantly correcting for machine sway. Structurally, the H10BLC preserved the tank-like construction of the H10B while distributing stress loads more effectively across the longer track frame. Many operators described it as the most planted machine Åkerman ever built. It was ideal for canal work, drainage projects, forestry, road construction, and deep utility excavation, any job requiring reach and absolute stability. The cab and hydraulics matched the robustness beneath. The hydraulic system remained smooth under multifunction loads, and the cab insulation made long shifts bearable. Operators who ran the H10BLC often became fiercely loyal, insisting it could outperform newer, lighter, more electronic machines simply because it felt unshakable. Even today, the H10BLC is prized in niche jobs that modern machines tend to struggle with. When stability equals safety and productivity, the H10BLC stands alone. Number 8. Akerman H11. The Akerman H11 was the moment when the brand stepped fully into serious heavy equipment territory. Bigger, heavier, and more powerful than the H10 family, the H11 was built for the kind of work that punished machines, bulk earth-moving, major construction, quarry extraction, and civil engineering operations where every bucket counted. If the smaller models were built like tanks, the H11 was built like a mobile fortress, a machine so structurally sound that operators believed it could drive off a cliff and still dig afterward. Everything about the H11 was scaled up. The boom, the dipper, the swing gear, the hydraulic pumps, the track frames, the rollers, you name it, it was big. The undercarriage alone looked like something borrowed from a military recovery vehicle. Contractors loved that. When the H11 sat down to dig, it didn't budge. It planted itself like a mountain and tore through material with complete authority. Hydraulically, the H11 had a deep, powerful feel. It wasn't fast, but it was steady, predictable, and incredibly strong. In rock, it excelled. In clay, it dominated. In frozen soil, it simply powered through. Operators trusted it because the machine never felt overloaded. It always seemed to have more grunt in reserve. The hydraulic cylinders were enormous, and the swing torque was tremendous for its era. The cab was utilitarian, but improved compared to earlier models, with better insulation and slightly better ergonomics. But nobody ran an H11 because of luxury. They ran it because nothing could stop it. Many H11s logged tens of thousands of hours, outlasting entire fleets of competitive machines. Some became legendary locally, machines everyone in a region knew because they had worked on every major project in the area. The H11 didn't just participate in heavy construction, it defined it. Number 9. Akerman H11B. The Akerman H11B was the perfected version of the H11, a machine that kept all the raw strength of the original, but addressed the practical realities that contractors and operators had discovered over years of intense usage. Where the H11 was a brute, the H11B was a brute with better manners. It delivered the same tank-like durability, but enhanced with smoother hydraulic control, better balance, improved maintenance access, and a more modern operator environment. For many experienced machine operators, the H11B became the preferred heavy-duty machine of the entire Akerman lineup. One of the biggest improvements was in the hydraulic tuning. The H11B offered a more responsive feel, especially when multifunctioning. The boom and dipper moved more smoothly, and the slew motor had a more controlled, consistent pace. This gave operators more finesse when loading trucks or shaping slopes, tasks that required more than just brute power. The reinforced boom foot, upgraded weld specifications, and improved cylinder sealing systems meant the machine could handle attachments and heavy buckets for longer periods without mechanical fatigue. Maintenance was easier as well. Panels opened wider, filters were easier to reach, and the hydraulic system was designed to reduce heat buildup, an issue that could plague earlier heavy-duty excavators. These updates contributed to longer service intervals and less downtime, an enormous benefit for contractors working on tight project schedules. The cab refinements were subtle but meaningful. Noise levels dropped, vibrations were better controlled, and the seat became more comfortable for long shifts. Operators felt less beaten up at the end of the day. The H11B soon gained a reputation as the big machine you could run all day. It was strong, stable, dependable, and surprisingly pleasant to operate for a machine of its size and era. Many H11Bs continued working into the 2000s and beyond, proving that Åkerman and later Volvo knew exactly how to build a heavy excavator meant to last a lifetime. Number 10. Åkerman H14. The Åkerman H14 was the apex predator of the 1980s Volvo line excavator world. a machine so heavily built, so densely packed with steel, and so outrageously durable that even today it commands respect from operators and contractors who know old iron. Weighing around 27 tons and powered by the Volvo Penta TD70 series engine, the H14 was the first major intersection between Åkerman's battlefield tough construction style and Volvo's refined engine technology. It was the precursor to what Volvo Excavators would eventually become: strong, steady, reliable machines capable of thousands of hours of punishing work without giving up. Structurally, the H14 was monumentally overbuilt. The main frame was a fortress of welded steel. The boom was enormous and deeply reinforced, and the dipper stick was built to take the kind of shock loads that would destroy modern lightweight equipment. The undercarriage was equally extreme, with thick track frames, heavy rollers, and a footprint wide enough to give the machine immense stability even when working at full reach. Hydraulically, the H14 delivered the smoothest performance of any Åkerman excavator of its generation. While it wasn't fast, it had a slow, deliberate, powerful quality that operators loved. You could feel the machine's structural integrity through the controls. Nothing rattled, nothing flexed, nothing felt strained. It was a machine built to dominate rock quarries, large civil projects, and heavy earth-moving operations for decades. The cab was also the most modern of the H-series, marking the first real step toward what Volvo cabs would eventually be known for: comfort, visibility, and operator-focused design. But ultimately, the H14 is remembered for one thing: its unmatched durability. If an excavator could be made from pure determination, it would be the H14. Even today, these machines remain symbols of an era when heavy machinery was engineered to outlast everything around it. These Volvo legends proved that brute strength and smart engineering could create machines that outlasted entire job site generations. Their rugged frames, unstoppable hydraulics, and battlefield-level durability set a new standard for reliability. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Volvo's toughest decade, hit like, subscribe, and tell me which excavator impressed you the most. Thanks for watching, and get ready, because the next video explores even more machines built to survive the impossible.